Would you begin by sharing a little bit about your family of origin?
Yeah. My dad actually came from the Thumb area of Michigan, and his family was converted by missionaries to the Reorganized Church. And my mom, I believe, is from the Detroit suburbs. My grandpa and dad and uncles, a lot of them, of course, worked for the big three auto industry. And I grew up, well, I do have to tell you this very interesting fact. My mom's two sisters married two of my dad's brothers. My mom's two sisters married two of my dad's brothers. He had a big family. There were like 10 or 11, maybe even 12 kids. So I had lots of double cousins. We had big family get-togethers. We were the annoying Willards at reunion, kind of like the Everetts were the annoying Everett.
We take pride in it.
Yeah. So, I actually was married to Steve in the same congregation that my mom and dad were married in, north of Detroit. And my great uncle who married them married my husband Steve and I. So I have a very blessed heritage. I was one of those kids that grew up in Zioneers and Zion's League, and the Rallo congregation and the Troy congregation, we did a lot of things together in the youth groups. And I actually, I can't say I went to church with Jim Nelson, but him and Carol and their kids, we were all kind of tied together through the youth, and we did canoe trips together. And so we were all actually pretty close, us kids. And Glenn Simpson and Jim were there for a time. And the two congregations merged, and so we did become one. And that was really, really wonderful for all the kids. It was a blessing. So I have a wonderful heritage in the church. I had two very strong faith-filled parents and both sides of the family, and lots of cousins and church kids, and we were just very, very active. I was one of those kids that went Wednesday night, Sunday morning, cleaned the church, once a month. We took our turn, and a lot of wonderful memories.
Were you called triple cousins or
Double cousins.
double? I thought you said there was three families.
Well, how I understand it is, well, I guess we would be triple in a way, but I always heard of it as double cousins.
Double cousins to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were baptized at 8?
I was baptized at 8 years old by my uncle, and my cousin and I, that we were the same age, we were baptized together that day, Nancy Willard, and who actually ended up marrying David Blair. A lot of my cousins went to Graceland. I didn't. I took a different path. And my dad, it took a lot of years for my dad to forgive me for that. But I can still remember the day he did finally. I guess he realized I did okay for myself, so he was thankful for that. But I kind of followed more of my mom's path. Now, my mom's two sisters and several of my dad's brothers went to Graceland, and a lot of their kids, and my son for a year and a half. And, so I have that rich heritage. So it's not unusual, I guess, in a way for me to be here. Although my cousins all kid me. It's like, you're the one that didn't go to Graceland, and you're the one that
You're the
didn't
ones
go
here.
today.
Making up time.
Yeah. But I've had my grandkids, two grandkids that have come through. One of my granddaughters is finishing up in at Liberty Graceland campus, what do you call it? Independence campus, yeah. And I have two cousins, kids here now. So that's really wonderful. And so for homecoming, even though we have a house full with a lot of the Everetts that traditionally come. Now my cousins are coming and they're pulling me in that direction. So it's like, oh my gosh, but it's so wonderful to have everybody together.
Okay, talk a little bit about your journey, so your high school days and then where you did go to school and all that good stuff.
Okay, well, I went to high school, of course, in a little town between Rollo and Troy called Clawson. And I actually met my husband at 15 years old. That's probably why my dad was, a little bit. But in a way, I met him through the church. So there was this man that went to church and talked his brother into coming to church, who I found kind of annoying. And he kept hanging around. So I decided to introduce him to some of my girlfriends in the neighborhood. And through that experience, I met my husband, Steve. And he started coming to the youth group and fell in love with my brother and my cousins and things like that in the church. And so we, dated through. He was kind of like my high school sweetheart, only he graduated. And but he came to church and he came to reunion and he fell in love with the people in the church and the big family. And my uncle baptized him, and we just we had a great life together. And so what I did as far as my education, I don't know if any of you know this, but I was a cosmetology instructor. So I went to beauty school in high school. So I graduated, got my license, went right to work. And that was my dream. My mom was a cosmetology instructor at my school, actually. She subbed. So fortunately, she wasn't there all the time. But I guess I just always knew what I was going to do. And then my dad's brother, which was strange, he's the baby of all those kids. He was a cosmetologist and he worked for Saks Fifth Avenue, retired. He did some of the news people, and that kind of thing. And my cousin, my male cousin, who ended up being my best friend and his wife and my husband's best friend, after I went to school, after he graduated from high school, he went to school to be a cosmetologist. He's still working for Saks Fifth Avenue. My husband, not my husband, my uncle always tried to get me to come to Saks, but I didn't, because I always thought in the back of my mind, I would maybe be a teacher someday. So I ended up having 3 kids, and we moved up north to Hunt Lake, and that didn't work out real well. I wish we could have stayed, but it was in the 80s when there was no work. So we came back to the Detroit area, and I talked to my mom, a different direction, and ended up with 3 kids. And my mom said, and I told her I would like to be a teacher someday, because I had kids, and I thought, well, gosh, that's a pretty good route, which I always thought of anyways. So she said, well, I'll make a deal with you. If you go back to school, I'll watch the kids for like 5 months or so, or 6 months, whatever it was. So I went to the same school that I got my training, and they let me get in an instructor program. So I did my training. So I have 2 state licenses, one for cosmetology, and I did my student teaching through the state of Michigan cosmetology program, got my instructor's license. But I wanted to teach in the high school, so I don't know, we call it career and technology, but back in the day it was vocational education. So, and that's how I got my training. So I kind of got a head start, and I was always able to work, and when we had the small children, I did go work like 2 nights and a Saturday. So my husband kept the kids, and it worked out actually very well. But I decided, well, they ended up asking me, since I had my instructor's license, they wanted me to work in Pontiac. I got a half-time position in Pontiac, and it was called Northeast Oakland Vocational Education Center back then. I don't know what they call it now, but I got my first half-time position. And then the other school that I actually went to school, they had an opening, and they wanted me to come back there. So I went there, and I was there a year, and then my husband was transferred to Texas. But you can't work in the high schools as a current technology without a teaching certificate. So they have a program through the universities that tie in all your training and your education that you have with a state license. So they tie together, they do a deficiency plan on you and decide, you know, what you're lacking or what would be the most critical. But I did already do my student teaching, so they recognize some of that, and they have to do each vocation individually because they're all different, from nursing to dental assisting. We had like 40, 50 careers under one roof. The county kids come there and we get bused there, and that's how that works in Michigan, and I think Oklahoma and a lot of other states. In fact, when I got here, I was subbing in Bethany at the Career Center. So I was in auto body, auto mechanic, welding, nursing, ag. Yeah, so, and they're block classes, so you're in there stuck with those
Lovely,
boys.
lovely
Lovely
children.
children for like 2 hours. But you make friends real fast.
Wow.
So that's how, so I started going up, but then I have to tell you, my date night with 3 kids was going to school. My husband and I started going to school together. We started at the community college because it was more affordable since both of us had to go for, you know, government and speech and some of those classes that we took there. So that was interesting.
So tell me about your siblings. I mean, how many you have? And then at what age you got married and the ages of your children, how soon after you were married and all that good stuff.
I got married in the fall of
I don't have to. have the year.
1977 of high school. So I was 18 years old.
Right out of high school. Okay.
My parents, now I look back and realize, oh my gosh, look what, you know, those poor people. Because nowadays you'd be like, oh, no, you're not. But anyway, so we had been together like 3 years, and a really wonderful, good-hearted man. He always avoided evil, I'll just say. Just a really good, everybody loved him, real funny, that kind of thing. So we were married 34 years. We had 3 children. Our first one was a little girl, and she was born in 79, and then 83, and then 82. 2 of them came back to back, didn't expect that. So, but we have, and right now, 2 of them live in Houston and 1 is in Austin, and I call her my California daughter. She's just got a job in Texas and she's moving this fall. She hopes to be there by her birthday, so all 3 of my kids will be in Texas together.
That's nice.
But
So you were telling us you were moving to Texas. Your husband got transferred.
yeah, we ended up in Dallas. We were there 5 years, and that's where I actually met the Everetts. I didn't really know Tammy and Kelly, but I met Shannon and Vicky. They were at the Fort Worth congregation, so that's where I met the Graybels, the Valentines, the Everetts, the Fretchleys, Mike Fretchley, some of those. And then, of course, through first reunion, the Conrads, I think Evelyn's mom, I don't know if she went to first reunion, but through our mission center and things like that, I got to know everybody in that area, because the one thing that I'm so thankful for, my dad told me when I was moving, the church, you're leaving your family, but don't ever forget, the church is your family. They will always be there. They are your extended family. And I remembered that. And I grew up going to, I don't know if I ever missed a reunion or like a junior high camp or high school camp. I didn't want to leave that place. I went to Blue Water Campgrounds in Michigan. So when we got there, I don't know if we went that first year or not, but maybe not, but anyway. So my husband was a pretty kind of active guy, and so he got on the Carrier Parkway basketball and baseball, softball. And so I got to know some of those people pretty well. The Roses, that's how I met Don Rose, and Cheyenne, Lester's granddaughter-in-law, was at our campground. And so those kids all went to camp together, and a lot of them Graceland together. And that kind of thing. Now Kelly and Tammy's kids, they always came to the reunion. And actually, I was a counselor. I had Jennifer in one of my junior high camps. And so they all, you know, kind of knew each other from camp and that kind of thing. And then I got to know Shannon and Precious Rosemary, Kelly's brother. If anybody has met Shannon, Oyster Shannon. So you can weather that storm, you can weather anything.
Good point.
Right now, he says, you knew what you were getting into.
Dan and Bashful?
Yeah, oh, my goodness. But, so my husband Steve liked to golf too, and so then after 5 years, he was transferred to Houston, but we kept going to the first reunion.
And that was where?
That was
In Texas?
in Texas.
Yeah, but where? Which campground? Are there more than one or is there just one?
Only
There's
one.
only
Camp,
one.
Camp Cienito in Bandera, which is
Okay.
just an hour west of San Antonio.
Okay,
So we started going there, we went regularly and, you know, that kind of thing. And, but what I knew from what my dad said about going, you know, staying with the church family, I really took that to heart. And so we did that. And when we got to Houston, we went to church right away, you know, each time. And it was just, it's a blessing. It's been a blessing. And because of that, I can really see how God has not only directed my life, but blessed my life. And if you were going to ask me about like my goals and things like that, and what have I accomplished, I feel like I had a purpose and a function as a person and being a teacher. I was a teacher for 27 years and subbed, you know, before that. And I believe, you know, raising my children and my family and keeping them in touch with the church, and they still are relatively active in our church. My youngest daughter is a priest in the Houston area, and my son feeds the homeless with the Austin branch in Houston once a month. They have teams, and they prepare staff breakfasts and coffee and juice and things like that, and feed the homeless. And so that's his commitment. He loves to be able to do that. And my oldest daughter, her husband was military. She moved around a lot, so she wasn't always near one of our churches. And so she kind of started going to, but she goes to church and takes her kids, and she tries every 2 years to come to camp. So every 2 years, her family tries to come back to reunion.
and this is your California daughter.
That's my California daughter. So she's moving to the Austin area, and she will be really close to the reunion ground. And her husband is so excited. And he's actually, remember I baptized all 4 of her kids and her husband in the Medina River in Bandera.
Wow.
A few years ago, and her husband is so excited because he's like a carpenter and by trade, and he's excited to go work at the campgrounds, because when we got married, he came, of course, for the first time, and when he saw that, and then of course coming to reunion, he can't wait to go help in the work parties. So the church has kept me stable, kept my kids stable, and been such a blessing. Led me spiritually. I've had many experiences because I was taught to pray. And my mom, I would have to say it's a toss-up between my mom and dad, but my mom, because she has that more humble, sensitive nature, is my hero. And she's a silent partner, you might say, but yet powerful. Her faith. I remember one time she was leaning up against the window, looking outside, and just quiet. And I thought, what is she doing? I was like, I don't know, 10 maybe. I'm like, Mom, what are you doing? And she said, come here, look. And so I climbed up on the van, and I looked out the window, and there were kids playing in the neighborhood. And she said, I'm praying for those kids and their families. I said, you're praying for them? And she's like, yeah. And I said, well, do you pray for me? And she said, yes, I pray for you and our family and lots of other people at church every day. And so I saw her doing that, you know, and it's just this impression in my mind. I know my mom's life, there's some things that were not easy for her, but she put the church first. My parents put the church first, almost to, I'm not going to say a fault, because I mean, kids, they said no to a lot of other things, but now, of course, I'm very thankful. I'm thankful that I think they were very wise in the things that they did, the things that they said. There were such wonderful examples of Christ. I didn't really hear, I never heard my mom say a cuss word. Not my dad, not very often, but he was one of those guys on the beaches of Normandy, World War II and Army, and you know, but because of those experiences in his life and his family, he knew better and he wanted so much more. And just like any good parent, my parents would try to protect us from everything that we weren't even aware of. And of course now it takes a long time before you understand that, but I was so blessed. So I tried to use those examples of Christ, you know, in my life, and I fall short, you know, but what I'm trying to do every day is be more humble, be more grateful, and use more grace. You know, I think there's always good reminders for that. One thing I wish I would have learned more about, I mean, we were taught morning devotionals, you know, well, not morning, but evening, bedtime with family, and we did a little bit of that too, my mom and dad. But in my family now, it took me a long time before I really understood the power of the morning devotionals. And so I don't know how many years ago I started doing that, but being a teacher and you have all these kids and families that you love and you know, care about, when I finally, it was through church, somebody said to do that, and I'm like, oh, okay, you know. And then when my husband died, which has 12 and a half years ago, and it changes you, and we weren't expecting that, and it was very, very traumatic. And I don't think you ever get over things like that. And I really enjoyed Florence's memorial yesterday, because the things that Stu shared, it was a good reminder, you know, they're not gone, they're gone from us, but we'll see them again. And for her to be reunited with her little one, I carried one for 6.5 months and lost that. But I mean, so, you know, it helps you grow and it gives you strength. And not only that, from those experiences that we have, it helps you understand what other people go through and to be compassionate. And that's what I love about this community. And I want to make sure that I say this. We did do the backpack program through our congregation. We did do a service program that I was involved in. But what Lamoni does, like, I love the Ministerial Alliance. I love how every denomination, I love how, I mean, I've heard it's the poorest county in the state, but yet everybody comes together, everybody works together, everybody cares about each other. And it is like a little Zion, and you know, we get tired and we're not perfect and we do the best we can and in our area and surrounding that we are. But because everybody asks me, you know, is Lamoni everything they say it is? And I'm like, yes, and more, you know, it really is. So everybody has been a blessing to me, and you can see the light and the commitment through everyone. And I just hope, I tried in my life to also do the best I could for the examples, the wonderful examples. Maybe that's why sometimes I do feel like I fall short, because I've had so many good, strong people that serve and care about others. So I've been blessed, and I'm slowly, after what, 12 and a half years, well, no, I think I've been here 10 years, just about 10 years. Getting into the swing of things, but I'm thankful. Yes, I miss my family, my children. I mean, I'm really from Michigan, but I was in Texas just as long, and so my heart is there as well. And I miss the people, but I honestly know that God has blessed me and blessed Kelly and our families, and we have learned to weather the storms and live, laugh, and love and embrace those things that are good. And I think it's because of my heritage in the church and the people that have gone before me that I am so appreciative, and I see that. And I know life's not easy for people. But you get up and go, and you do the best you can. I know there was a situation a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I remember when Patty hugged me. And it's just those little things, but I'm thankful, and I'm so blessed, and I think I'm emotional because of the love that I've experienced in my life. And everybody goes through pain and suffering and grief, but it's my faith that kind of got me on the other side, and helps me to remain positive and supportive.
Put it towards your mouth. No.
It's the lower.
I don't know, let's just stop using the microphone.
Don't turn it off. No, don't.
I didn't,
Okay.
I didn't.
Receivers off, you're safe.
Okay, so you moved to Houston, you've lost your husband. So how does this man come in?
Well,
Tough question.
well, I got that awful phone call in like January or something when we heard the news that
It was an accident, you said it was unexpected, is that what you said? Your husband's
Yeah.
death,
I would,
that was unexpected?
yeah, that was unexpected. My husband had a massive, the widowmaker heart attack at home. In fact, we were merging two congregations again, and we had an all-day planning meeting. My husband was on that committee, and David Siddle was there. If y'all know David Siddle from Lamoni, and his wife pulled up in her new sports car and said, "Steve, come on, I want to take you for a ride in my car," because he was a car guy. And off they went, her hair blowing, and she let him drive it, And another lady asked, she wanted to have a garage sale, and so she needed some tables from the church, which he had already loaded up and was gonna, on the way home, after he got back from his little ride, we went by her house, he set things up for her, and we went home. And we were tired, I mean, nothing big. We were having a wonderful afternoon after church and with the planning committee lunch, and it was a great day. And we went to bed about 10 o'clock, and I mean, I was just as tired as he was, so there wasn't anything out of the ordinary that we knew of, and we went to bed. And I, about an hour later, I heard some, awful, unusual noises, and he was a little bit of a jokester too. I thought he was like joking or teasing me or, but then I realized, so I called 911 and did CPR and all that, until they got there. And, but I don't know how long, they were able to get his heart going, but apparently he had gone too long without oxygen, so, yeah, he passed away. And he was an organ donor, and that was a whole nother experience, but very, you don't want to do that when you're in that situation, but that's what was on his license, and that's something we talked about, and that's what he wanted to do. And so I do know that they used his cornea, and they used we didn't get notified for everything, but somebody got his liver, a lady got his liver and things like that. So, but we got through to my church family and my school family, my work family, my principal. I mean, people came. There was a period before we, 3 days or so before we figured all that out. And my principal and ladies from my school came and prayed over our family and our husband, and of course our pastors. And David Siddle was him and David Siddle and my husband were really good friends, golf buddies and that kind of thing. So
You still have children at home?
no, that all my children were grown then, because that was just my children. And in fact, this is so interesting. Kelly and Tammy got married in October, like a couple days in 1977, a couple days away from us. They were like the 4th or 5th, and we were the 8th. Our oldest girls were born the same year, so the same age. Then we both had middle boys born the same years, and then Jennifer and Liz are about the same year as well. So we got married the same years. Our kids are the same age, girl, boy, girl, that kind of thing.
Adventure trips together.
Yeah, oh, we went on venture trips together. Our kids did. I didn't go on the venture trips, but the Houston kids and the St. Louis kids came together. In fact, my kids were already I guess Kelly and Tammy had moved to that house. And for some reason, they had come to Lamoni and did a service project at Graceland and went through the house. I don't even know if you guys were moved in yet, but so they remember going through the house. So, and I went on a venture trip growing up. So the church has been crucial in our establishing our faith all of our life. But how I met Kelly, so I mean, I knew his mom and dad were in that area, and Katie, his younger sister Katie, they were in the Houston area. So I knew all of them from camp. Now, Katie's husband, Charles, was a career and technology teacher. And so him and I saw each other every year at reunion. We saw each other every summer for teacher in service. And him and I went to our retirement class together at one of our teacher in service. So we always were like, high five, And when we had district conferences and things like that, competition with the kids, I saw him as well. So, I mean, and our kids were in the Houston youth group. I made sure that, we did all that together. So, so at reunion, but then, so let's see. So that's summer or a year later, when Kelly was going through his, because it had been 2.5 years for me. And I will share this with you because you might think it's kind of funny, but I really didn't. I think I was like 56 years old when my husband passed away. So I kind of knew I was sort of young, sort of, but not, so I thought, well, but I wasn't interested in anything, I mean, so there, I had a few things that I was going to stick to. And with my life in the church and with what I saw with some of my friends that you might say either settled for less and had problems later, I'm like, okay, I'm not going through that. So I wasn't interested in even dating. I wasn't interested in dating, but talking to anybody that wasn't a church member. And because of that, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be single a very long time. So, okay, whatever. But I did pray about those things. And I was like, okay, God, but not even for 2 years. I mean, I was like, I feel like I was in deep, deep mourning for 2 years. And then all of a sudden, I just realized one day I was tired of being sad. And I had a beautiful spiritual experience through that, which helped me kind of in one of those experiences that you're mad at God type thing. Not mad, but it's like, really, God? Now what? And the Spirit did come to me one morning, and I saw Jesus sitting with children, but I think I saw just like the picture or the ornament where you see Jesus sitting with children. And I think I viewed it that way because that's the only way my mind might have known how to view
To
that.
recognize it.
If you watch videos and things, that's what you see. So, but I was praying and praying one morning, and it was like 5 o'clock in the morning before I got ready to go to work, and fog rolled in my office where I was sitting. I would do a little stretch and I did my devotional, but I felt like I was having I had no peace. And I don't know if I was testing God in my prayers and the things I said, but it's like this fog rolled in my room, and it was like the Holy Spirit that came. And I saw Jesus with children, and it was made known to me that my husband is free and happy and doing well. And he was with children too. And I just remembered children. Somehow that connection. And I think that's why I am concerned about children. And I feel like through that, it helped me to realize what my new purpose was, because I had accomplished my teaching goals. I knew I would be retiring, and the things that were raising my children. I accomplished all these things. And then you think you're going to, we were even talking about retirement and traveling to see our kids and grandkids and things like that. And it's like it's snatched away from you, and so there was 2 years of that. But after that experience, I had peace after that. And I guess I realized I don't want to say you ever let go, but like Stu said yesterday, we're gone home. He's gone home. That's where we came from. That's where we're going. And so I was able to realize my mom and dad, they're all together. Steve had lost his sister after him and his oldest brother after him. So his mom, within a year and a half, lost 3 kids. And anyway, so that gave me peace, and I was able to. So then in my prayers, and then if you want to ask me questions, but in my prayers, I'm like, okay, God, I don't know where I'm going or what I'm going to do, but you've got to give me strength, and you can't let me make any bad decisions. I know you can. You got to get my head straight, and if I'm going to do this, okay. So, that I was concerned that one reunion, because Kelly, I knew what he had gone through, and so I thought he ministers to everyone. Who ministers to him? And him and his brother Dwight gave this beautiful class that they did to the young adults that my kids were in, and my kids were ministered so much by that. But that whole week I didn't know what to say to him. But he always, him and Tammy, my kids loved them, and they grew up through camps with their families and things like that. And so I wanted to say something, and it was the very last day, and I was getting a few things to put in the cabin. We clean our cabins to leave, and my grandkids were already, it was me and my grandkids, because I always took them to reunion every single summer as well. But I ran back to get something that I forgot to put in the cabin, and to then jump in my car, and Kelly happened to be on the sidewalk. So I did give him a hug, and I said, I have been thinking about you this week. And I said, thank you for your ministry to my children. You helped to bring so much peace, because they realized what I realized, is that, okay, their dad, they will see their dad again. And he's living his life well, and we are to live our life well as well. And so I thanked him for his ministry, and I said, you minister to so many people. Who ministers to you? And I don't even remember what he said, and I had to go. I had him on the back, I said something, and so I jumped in the car and, headed back to Houston. And then I got a phone call, or not a phone call, email Monday morning. And it was something about, well, he was gonna send me some videos and things from the class that he thought would help me too, The very last sentence, he's like, hey, I'm gonna be in Houston in August. Do you wanna meet for dinner? And I'm like, that was like the last sentence. I had to read it 150 times. He knows I don't have any money for Graceland. And so then I'm like, okay, you're reading like too much into this. And I said something like, I responded, but I think it went to his spam. So that was like Monday morning. And so by Thursday, the salesman that he is, he sends another email. This is a test. He wasn't going to take no for an answer. So I checked on the bottom and I saw that he had a phone number and I thought, well, surely he texts, So I texted him and said, I responded right away. And then he's like, oh, he took that as a good thing, and I was just being kind. I was, and so then we started texting back and forth a little bit, and we were supposed to talk the first time on the phone. The day that Kaylee Mae was born, Jennifer went into labor, so we didn't necessarily get to talk then. But my grandkids were at the house, and he called. And back then on the phones, it would say like Kelly or something. I think either his name came up or they answered the phone. And they were like, Nana, and my brother and his wife were there. It's Kelly Everett. I'm like, so
Okay.
like what? Yeah. And then my sister-in-law, she's like, and then everybody kind of gathers around, and he was telling me that, the baby, I won't be able to talk to you tonight because the baby came, we're going to the hospital and this and that. So, but anyway, so then I was already going to LA to see my daughter. And okay, so in my prayers, I said, okay, God, if I'm in a date or anything like that, or do this, you have to give me a sign. You have to help me know, you have to protect me. And so a couple of people that did ask me, I said, no. But I told God, you have to give me a sign. So we ended up, I was going to visit my daughter, and Kelly says, oh, well, in August, well, gosh, I'm going to be in LA too. So he said, why don't you, and I was going to fly standby on my friend's Continental Airline thing. And he said, oh, I'll get you a ticket. I, have miles and things. So, and I'm like, no, I'm thinking save money, So, but I had prayed for God to give me a sign. So anyways, I went to the airport, and what I asked for was, I said, okay, God, you're going to have to make him glow. You're going to have to make him glow, because I'm not going to do this, So here we are standing under the luggage, waiting for my luggage, and they had recessed lighting, and I had a nice sports coat on. I had only ever seen him in like camp t-shirts and shorts, all that sweaty Houston 100-degree, weather, and he's all, and we get down to get my luggage, and he stands under a light. And his hair shiny and glowing.
That's great. That's great. That's why.
It's glowing. His shoulders under that recessed light. And I'm like, oh, you're glowing. And I moved him. Then I start shaking. I'm like, no. I'm thinking to myself, no, God, So anyways, I grew up having those kinds of talks and relationships, a close relationship with God, depending on him for everything. And
he answers.
Oh, he has answered. When I was 12 years old, I think I shared that before. I tested him and prayed. I thought, well, if Joseph Smith can do it, I can do it. In 6 months, I prayed. And I don't know if that's the right attitude or not. He brought one of the persons from the priesthood to me and said, the Lord wants you to know he's heard your prayers. And everything that I had prayed about the Dale Day, I think he was an elder in the church, was able to confirm and tell me. So I have had very rich experiences like that, feeling the Holy Spirit wash over you. Wednesday night services, sharing testimonies, do my homework and stopping because you could feel the Holy Spirit and listening. So I've just been so blessed, and I'm thankful for this community so that because they've really, you have all really demonstrated you're the light of Jesus to me in the hands and the feet. And even though we get discouraged sometimes because things don't always go how we expect, God's in control. And that's what I've learned in my life. And if we listen to him and stay in touch and try to stay in tune and share our gifts, as little or big as they may be, he directs our path. And that's what I've tried to instill in my children and my grandchildren. And the beautiful thing for Kelly and I now is we are able to share, and that's the thing, we have so many things in common. We have just so many things in common. Even Kelly and Steve, the type of work they did. Steve golfed with Kelly and his brothers, and the golf guys from Bandera, when Steve passed away, we have that brick road, the old path, we call it, like in front of the admin building at Graceland. And they have a big, beautiful stone in memory of Steve Portis from the golfers. And so there's just so many blessings along the way, good-hearted people that, we're all united and we're all uniquely woven together like a tapestry.
Marion, I have a quick comment. Fast forward months later, Terry and I are talking about getting married, but she tells me, you're gonna have to come talk to my class and convince them
At school.
at
Okay.
school.
Okay, I was gonna ask her, so
Not
tell
a
me,
month-
tell me
not a-
what happened after the glow.
Well, after the glow, the weirdest thing is, I don't know what happened to my TV, but the stupid, well, not stupid, but the
smart.
Sleepless in Seattle kept coming on. It kept coming on. And the very last thing, the whole thing was about when you hold hands, you'll know. Well, now I look back and I'm like, was that another God thing? Like, because when we got my luggage, we walked out. Kelly said, I don't know, can I hold your hand? And I'm like, it reminded me of Sleepless in Seattle. And at the Empire State Building, I'm like, okay. And it was like all that warm fuzzy, all that, and just like in the movie. And I'm like, I wanted to just almost pass out then, because I just kept thinking, and I said, I was denying. I'm like, no, God, it's, but I do think that neither one of us, I don't think, dated anybody. It just, so I view it as just such a wonderful blessing, because I just stepped into the most
Tell
normal.
us about your class and needing their approval.
Well, in fact, two of my students, I brought 9 kids up here to Graceland once they met Kelly. Well, and because they knew my husband had just a few years ago, 2.5 years ago, passed away, and my school was very supportive and of me. And so my girl, see, I had my students for 2.5 years. It was a career and technology program. So I had them, I went on trips with them. We went to state conference and district conference, and we competed in nails and hair and mannequins and all kinds of, we did leadership skills, employability skills. We did things, all kinds of things like that, the business and things that we competed in. And so we were pretty close. They're my kids. You know how that is with volleyball, and they're your kids. You take care of them, and you get to know their families and all this and that. So when, when Kelly came that August, when he said, well, I'm gonna be in Houston, so he came and we went, I don't know if we were coming from the airport or where, but we were gonna stop and have lunch, and of course, he wanted Whataburger. And so I'm like, okay, we were getting near my house, I'm like, okay, but if we're gonna have Whataburger, we can't have it in the town I live in, because I don't want the kids to see, because you know, kids work in those restaurants and stuff, because they're nosy, you know. I said, so we'll stop at this one over here. Well, come to find out, one of my kids, girls, brothers worked there and saw me. I even went in there when we sat down, I even looked around, just to make sure that there was nobody I knew in there. Because I mean, I don't, you know. And he went back and told all of the kids, all of my senior class, that I was with a man. And so my first day of school, when school started, all the seniors come in. I mean, my morning kids, they didn't know me. They were new juniors. They didn't know me. But my senior kids I'd had all last year. They're all sitting like this. And I'm like, what? Hi. You know? Then I thought, what is wrong? What is wrong? So one of the girls shouts out, well, my brother saw you in Whataburger. And I'm like, no. And you were with a man. And she said that in front of everybody in the class. And I'm like, oh my God. So, you know, so then I tried to explain how he was just a friend and he was in town, you know, and all this and that. But then once we started dating, they were like, because they would ask me, are you seeing him? Are you going to date? They asked me all kinds of questions about him, like the third degree, more so than even my kids, because my kids knew Kelly already. So, you know, and so then finally, since we started talking more and more and more that whole fall, I told him, and then like if I was on the phone, like even if I had a phone call, they would be like coming in at my lunch hour, who are you talking to? Stuff like that. And well, and part of that is there was this person kind of sketchy that came and asked me to go out with this person, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say in front of my students. They said that, you know, and I said yes, but then I couldn't do it and I had to cancel. But so they were all like watching out for me, like
Protecting.
yeah, you know. And so anyway, so finally when we started to get more serious, I said, you're gonna have to come meet these kids and talk to them. And he did, and he did. And then so that whole year I started talking to them more and more about
But I had to buy them all dinner.
oh yeah.
It's dinner to convince them it's okay.
Well, I was trying to explain to them how I worked for this university in Graceland and all this and that, because my principal found out, and my principal asked me, so what does he do? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I know he works for Graceland. I didn't know he was a vice president. No, I mean, I kind of know he worked in development, but I really didn't know exactly, you know? And so that was not really a good answer for my principal. So I don't know if the kids went and talked to him or what, anyway. So when we got to know more about Graceland and so on, then a couple of the kids were interested, and so he said, well, I can come talk to them. And so we went to Freddy's. We went to Freddy's, and he bought them dinner and then sat around and talked about Graceland and things like that. And even my substitute that subbed for me all the time, she even came. I mean, everybody was, I guess.
Checking this guy out.
Yeah, we were a tight group, but yeah, so he had to buy them dinner, and then they were like, well, okay. But, and so then after that, some of the kids said they wanted to go to Graceland, and so he rented a van for me, and I drove 9 of them up here, and they stayed on the campus, and 2 of the 9 did end up coming. They
Wow.
graduated.
Wow.
One of them, one is an accountant and is doing very well, and the other one opened her own business, and she got back and she's doing very well and loved Graceland, had great experience. And both of those 2 students were probably the 2 that gave Kelly the hardest time. In fact, B&A went to our camp. She was a Graceland rep. And so she came and was a Graceland rep at our camp that summer. at least one summer, and it's come to reunion and
He calls you every week.
calls me every week, at least once or twice a week. Um, just wonderful people. So I had a great careers, teaching, and I loved it. My mom, was a teacher, and but I do have to tell you, my two sisters came to Graceland, and my brother went the military route, and since I got married and had my children, relatively young, my dad was always worried if I was going to make it, and I don't know, be able to, and he did tell me not to depend on anybody and encouraged me to have a career, and he was happy to know that I was taking classes, but I don't know that he ever really realized that I finished my certification and things like that. But one day, my husband, Steve, had picked my dad up from the airport and had to do some business somewhere. So he said, well, I can pick him up. Can I drop him off at your school? Because I got to do this. So he dropped him off at my school. And I was working in Magnolia, north of Houston, this big, new, beautiful school. We had 2,500 or more students, so it's a big, big school. And he came in, and for cosmetology and print technology, you have a lab. So I had a full salon, and 2 days a week we did clients. Thursdays and Fridays we did real clients, and we took our kids to the state board and everything. And then I had an office, nice big office, and I had a classroom with lots of computers. My little dad walked in, I thought his mouth was going to hit the floor. And he didn't have any idea, I guess, what I do. And my dad hugged me, and he said, I just want to apologize. I never really understood. But I'm so proud of you. You wonder, my dad didn't talk that much to us kids, little words to us, but yes, that day, because I always did feel a little bit guilty about not going to Graceland.
You're here now.
But I'm here now. Yeah.
Are your parents still alive?
No, my mom passed away when she was 62, and my dad was about 88, but he's been gone. He actually passed away 2 years before my husband passed away. So
They didn't ever know about Kelly.
No, they didn't ever know
Well,
about
they
him.
might know.
But what's funny? My mom would always say, I know you're going to marry a farmer. I feel like you're going to marry a farmer. And because I used to go, my cousin and I would go to my great uncle who married Steve and I. We'd go to his dairy farm up in, not really the Thumb area, but just north of our campground, Blue Water Campground in Michigan. They had a big dairy farm. So we went a couple of summers, and I'd get up at 4:30 in the morning with them. And I'd go out to the barn, I'd feed the cows and cats, the milk buckets and all of that kind of thing. And I just loved that type of thing. And so I guess that's where my mom got that. But now that I'm in Lamoni, and Liz and Kevin are an hour north, and I know my mom and my grandma are so proud because we're canning. Kelly helps his daughter with her garden, and we can tomatoes and green beans, and we've done some meat and things that I never thought I would do, but I wouldn't do it if Kelly didn't help. And he did a whole 2 things of tomatoes the other day, pretty much by himself. Picks them, grows them, picks them, and everything. And so sometimes, and then when Kevin and Liz go away, we go out and we feed the grain to the cows and check the cats and things like that. And I got to go with Kelly when I was up here visiting, when Kevin was still having the calves to be born in February, we'd go check them all night when they were going to be born. And so I've seen a lot, and I got a chance to help stimulate one that didn't make it. We pulled it on the back porch, and we were blow drying it, because it was like below 0 degrees, so I've done some of that. And I in the back of my mind, I snicker, and I think
About your mom.
how life unfolds. And so that's, I guess, my testimony is that the times that I didn't depend on God and try to do it myself, you don't always, but every time when I was thinking about being a teacher and thinking about all these things, I prayed about it, and my mind brings me back to my mom praying over the neighborhood and the neighborhood kids out there playing. And so I just fall short sometimes, but I have tried to